Hey, it's Sylvan, and this is the Handpan podcast. Do you remember your life before the handpan? Can you imagine a life without a handpan? Because the handpan is this self-contained, acoustic, and portable musical instrument, it's easy to incorporate it into the rhythm of our everyday lives. Think about it. You don't need a full band to play with. You don't need to plug into an amp either, which means you can play anywhere, anytime. I like to say it becomes the soundtrack of your life. And remember, it's not accidental. It was intentionally designed that way, which is brilliant from pen art. We also know that the handpan is clearly a powerful, expressive tool that allows us to experience complete creative freedom. But could this instrument still become a stumbling block for us sometimes? On today's episode, my friend Lewis and I explore the benefits and also the pitfalls of owning a handpan. Lewis is on the brink of a remarkable life adventure. What role will the handpan play in it? Here's my conversation with Lewis Johnson. Hey, how's it going, Lewis?
Hey, what's up, Sylvan?
Good. I'm really glad to catch you while you're on this side of the Atlantic. Are you packing today?
Today is definitely a day dedicated to packing. How many things can I fit in my suitcase?
Wow. And when are you leaving again?
I actually leave on Monday, April 1st, April Fool's Day. So
Ah.
the flight's kind of cool. It works out to where I'll be flying from Michigan to Philadelphia for a couple days. I have like an orientation, and
Hmm.
then from there to South Africa, and then all the way to Zambia.
Wow. So I think that's the place to start with. Just tell me about this amazing journey that you're about to embark on.
Yeah, so the next, I guess, exciting, challenging, upcoming journey that my life is kind of going down is I've starting Peace Corps on April 1st. So I'll be moving to Zambia for 27 months to start working in small villages on a rural aquaculture project. So that's essentially just like small scale sustainable fish farms.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my other passion aside from playing pan and music is just kind of working with people in the environment and yeah,
Wow.
finding a way to kind of all make it jam together, if you will.
Yeah. What made you decide to go to Zambia for this project over a 2 year long project?
You know, there's quite a few different reasons. I guess to start, this particular project in Zambia is something that was fairly unexpected to me. When I was thinking about applying for Peace Corps, first of all, my hang up was the time commitment, right? Like
Hmm.
2.5 years in another country. Like I can't even commit to what I want to eat for breakfast usually. Um, but the more I thought about it and, just thinking about development work and really when it comes to any project, there's so many things where people come in and they'll start something and there's just not enough time to finish it. You almost have to say goodbye as soon as you're saying hello to someone. And
Hmm.
so to really like, get into a community and get to know everyone, I think 2.5 years is almost what made me happy about it in the first place.
Hmm.
And as far as Zambia goes, whenever I thought I wanted to do Peace Corps, my eyes were always set on West Africa because I wanted to go and study djembe on the side too,
Hmm.
which is a little selfish, but I thought, music culture is cool there.
Yeah.
Um, but when they offered me the position in Zambia, it was just like, I didn't even know where it was on a map. And just that, I don't know, the way that it all lined up and in the time frame and where my life was at the moment, it just seemed like this awesome adventure into something that was off out of my comfort zone or out of the realm of places where I would normally have wanted to go. And that in the end is what was just overwhelmingly exciting for me. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I've told you that I've met a number of people in the Peace Corps, and those were the most amazing people. They just were such good ambassadors of this program, which I don't really know that much about, but it's a part of the U.S. government, right? It's put together by the government.
Yeah, so it's part of the US government. Yep.
Okay.
So you're like an ambassador of culture and
Yeah. And I know you'll be bringing a handpan, so you'll also be an ambassador of the handpan. Because has a handpan ever been introduced to Zambia? I don't know.
you know, to be honest, I have no idea, but I'm so excited to be able to take a pan with me, and to be able to share that with the culture. And also just, so I'm gonna be there for the full 2.5 years, 27 months. And initially, there's going to be a bit of a language barrier, right? Like I'm doing my best to study, but Zambia has, I think, it's either seven or nine official languages and then 73 odd dialects spoken throughout the country. And so I've been fortunate enough to travel a little bit so far, and it seems like every time, um, yeah, when you can't communicate with somebody directly through words, if you sit down and play music with them for a while, it really allows you to bridge that gap and feel and connect on another level. And the handpan in particular, I'm sure as everyone who listens to this podcast knows, is just such a good way to express yourself and to relate as humans.
Yeah, that's so true. Music in general does that, but I think the handpan, because it's simple to approach and sort of effortless to play, it facilitates that even more, right?
hmm I agree 100%. And especially too, when you look at a lot of these African cultures and how just musical everyone is, I'm excited to just go and be a sponge and to learn so much about their culture too and see how that translates into just playing in my expression as well as theirs on the instrument.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a great approach. Um, what do you think that it is about the handpan that draws people in?
That's a tough question. Um,
So you've traveled quite a bit with your handpan, and you've introduced a lot of people to this sound. Have you ever experienced people's reactions to the instrument in a way that left a mark, left an impression on you?
yeah, and this definitely is. I feel like I've had so many different experiences with this. But the one that comes to mind that was almost one of the most impactful experiences for me, and actually the same one that we discussed a little bit in Pantasia, was my first experience trying to busk.
Mm.
Uh, so
Okay.
to give you a little bit of background information, uh, so I'm from the state of Michigan, and I grew up just on the outskirts of a smaller town called Jackson, Michigan. It's famous for having the biggest prison in the state. It used to be the biggest prison in the country for a while.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a good city, but it's got its rough patches. And street performing and live music, something that is a little bit hard to find in Jackson.
Yeah.
And then from there, I moved to Michigan State University for college. That's where I had been for the past 4 years prior to this.
Hmm.
And East Lansing is a cool town, but at the same time, there's not a single venue in East Lansing where you can go to see a live band or something. It's all a bunch of DJs and a lot of football, which is fun, um, but it also means not street performers.
Hmm.
So this journey kind of started because uh, Jeremy Arndt is a handpan player who's from Michigan who is amazing. He's like one of the best people ever. He was invited to play at this Michigan Buskers Festival they were putting on. It was like the first year, just to kind of introduce some people in Michigan to what street performing is. And so he was unable to make it. So Jeremy had passed the invite along to myself and my really, really good friend. I've known him for my whole life, Parker Horsch, who also plays handpan. And so in my mind, I'm excited because I'm going to play at this Street Performers Festival. It's, a cool thing to get to expose people to the pan and music. But I was like, I've never really street performed before, ever. So I took my pen and I decided to go downtown into East Lansing where I was living at the time. And there's this one older gentleman who's always down there playing a guitar. And he was just wrapping up for the day when I was rolling up on my bicycle with my handpan, which is a pretty funny sight sometimes. And so I asked him, if he wanted to just play some music with me, and whatever we made as far as money goes, he could keep. So, we sit down and he's like, he kind of looks at the pan at first and he's like, what is that? Is that some kind of super? He called it a super kalimba, which is a good. The handpan gets called some pretty crazy things
Yeah.
every now and then. That was one of my favorites. So I sit down and I start playing with this guy. He's a really good guitar player too. Um, and we wrap up our kind of jam sesh, and he looks at me and he just starts sobbing,
Wow.
and he starts talking about how when he was a kid, as soon as he finished high school, he decided that, music was going to be what he was going to do. And so he said he was in a couple different bands for a while. And after too long, everybody kind of moved away, decided they wanted to stop playing, had families, got busy. And so he just started playing on the streets. And knowing a little bit about the background of Michigan and the busking culture that's around, a lot of times when you're out there street performing, people just see you as like some bum on the street asking for a spare change.
Yeah.
And he said, like he loved music and he was just like playing every day and, putting his heart and his soul into playing this stuff. And he was getting kicked out of places.
Hmm.
People were spitting at him. People were calling him names. And so he started to talk about after a while, he really started to lose his love for music. He told me that he would just play so he could get a half pint to pop off and get drunk and pass out in a ditch somewhere, were his exact words.
Hmm.
And so he said that the handpan in particular, and like being able to play music with each other that day really reopened to his heart to like his love for music. And it was just such a powerful, eye-opening experience into, I guess, just music and life and music and the journey that it takes everyone on. It definitely is something that I very hold near and dear to my heart, and that I hope that everyone gets the chance to have an experience like that at some point. Um, the handpan really does have the ability, I feel, to help people in so many ways that, go beyond what we could ever imagine when we sit down and we decide to play. And I don't know. And just talking about, yeah, like the intention that you put into the playing. And I guess if I think about it, like that day when I decided to play with this guy, um, not from any, like, so my intention was to sit down and to play essentially for him, right? And whatever money we could make, he was earning, like I would just give to him. And like that, my intention was to play for him, but the scope of what I thought that would bring was just a monetary value. But for the to just surpass that by so much and to just like reopen his heart to music is something that I would never have imagined. Yeah,
Yeah.
just you never know what the handpan's gonna do.
Yeah. One of the amazing things about this instrument is that it empowers us to go out there and make stuff, either create music or go out and perform, just play. And if it weren't for this instrument, you may not have made the decision to go out and go street perform downtown. So it activates so many things in our lives, right?
Yeah, yep. And that's the other thing too. So, these instruments, they are very, very fragile. And for the most part, they're also fairly difficult to obtain. So you spend so much time and so much care getting this thing that, you know, it's hard sometimes to get the motivation to feel like you can just go take it and play it on the street. Like what if something happens to it? What if And I feel like a lot of times I catch myself with my pen, like for instance, I have this new wonderful hand pen now, and I'm just trying to, yeah, not be afraid to take it places and to share it with people because I think that's important.
Yeah. Historically, these instruments have been so rare that we were afraid that if they were damaged, that would be it, right? Now there is an abundance of makers and tuners. So we can sort of relax a little bit. And hopefully what this generates is that we're more generous with sharing this gift to others.
And yeah, so also, I've had the opportunity over the past like 4 or 5 months, I guess. So I finished my undergraduate degree at school,
Hmm.
and instead of doing the reasonable or sensible thing to do and get a job, I decided to just kind of like neglect most of my adult responsibilities and go backpack through Asia with a handpan for about 4 months. Um,
Wow.
and it was funny. The first place I got to, actually, I met another pan player. It was this really, really beautiful place that's in the south of Thailand, and it was at this rock climbing place, and he said, "Oh, that's cool, man. I brought my Rav. You're crazy traveling with that thing." And because it was just me and a backpack, and I had it in the Panji cases, which are fairly large to be on public transportation in Thailand with. It's funny, you have to like do the penguin thing and put the case between your legs like it's an egg, and like waddle on the subway.
Yeah.
Um, but it also, at the same time, while it may seem like it's difficult, and that one was a raw steel pan too, so it's like always worried about rust, always cleaning it.
Hmm.
Um, Instead of limiting the places that I could go, I think it really like instead had the opposite effect, and to where it just opened so many doors for me, and like I was able to meet so many wonderful people through just playing pan around.
Hmm.
And it really goes back to the statement that it's a bridge.
For many of us, the handpan becomes such an integral part of who we are and what we do. And I know that recently you went without a handpan for several months. So, against that backdrop of how exciting and empowering, interesting it is to be a handpan player, how did that feel to not have an instrument? Did you have an identity crisis?
I definitely had an identity crisis. And on top of having this identity crisis, I had no outlet for these emotions, right? Because I didn't have a pan to play about it anymore. So it definitely, definitely taught me so much. Um, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember an experience I had during my first year in the US. I came in as an exchange student in upstate New York. I only had one instrument, my pan art hong. And my wife, we were dating at the time, lived in Minneapolis, and I was in upstate New York. So I would, visit once a month. And during one of the weekend trips that I went there, I left my hong with her so that she could get the opportunity to have extended play with the instrument. And so I flew back to my dorms without a handpan, without my hong. And I totally had an identity crisis as well because I think I had placed a lot of my sense of identity in this instrument. Any party you would go to, you bring the hong, that's really cool. You make friends really easily. Um, and so I do wonder at times if we get too caught up in the handpan. I mean, it's not a bad thing. For the most part, it's just an amazing thing. But how do we keep boundaries around this thing that we almost worship in our lives. Any insights there?
Yeah, I guess I can only share from the brief bit I've been able to digest from this past experience. Um, and first of all, I just also want to thank you for sharing that experience that you just did. It made me think about a lot. One of my favorite things I've ever heard anyone say about a handpan actually comes from my really good friend. He goes by the name Neutrino, and he described it as I used to be the weird guy sitting in the corner, and I went from that to being mysterious and interesting because I had a handpan still sitting
Wow.
in the corner.
That's that is a loaded statement that says a
I
lot.
know. Yeah, and so yeah, on that same note, I think the first lesson that really comes up is definitely this misconception of like pride that comes with the handpan, and like because it is a cool thing. I actually just recently checked today, and there's more people than I thought there were. But we have like a Michigan handpan players Facebook group,
Hmm.
and there's only 20 of us in the whole state. The last time I checked, there was only like 10 or 12. But it is this really really wonderful thing that you a lot of times are the first person to expose someone to, and there is this kind of like essence of I don't know, it is cool, but more so than the humility that that comes from not having a pan on that note, I think is the fact that when you play a handpan, you do really have the capacity to help people on another level that you would never imagine.
Hmm.
And like my experience with this guy busking, and like you never know the extent to where that instrument and the intention that you put into it really can help people. So, um, yeah, and for me, that's just something that, and for a lot of people in the community is important, just the ability to help others. That's why I'm doing the work I'm doing with the Peace Corps and like you with the refugee resettlement. And
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, without the handpan, like, how do I still make my life as meaningful to others as well? And like, how can I be the best human I can be without a handpan?
Yeah.
After having one for so long. And after, yeah, so for my experience, I'm traveling around Asia and then in Hawaii for a while doing nothing but playing pan every single day to, for 4 or 5 months to just not having this instrument at all.
Yeah.
Um, and it, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is there is a risk of getting proud and getting caught up in, whoa, look at me, how cool I am.
Oh, yeah, of course. There's always
And I
that
think we've
risk.
all experienced that, and we've probably given into that a little bit. Um,
Try not to, with like every breath, but sometimes you're like, yeah, it is kind of cool, but like everyone can play it.
yeah, and one thing that I noticed recently is the handpan community, or the loose handpan community, is made up of contrarians, people who tend to gravitate towards being anti-conformists, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah,
so you have an entire community of people who want to be different, except we're all the same within that community. Um,
which makes it a really good learning environment.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Hmm.
So there's this pride issue that can be a risk, and there's also this realization that, well, we have this tool that we can use to bless others, to elevate others who are not benefiting from the same platform as we do with this instrument. Um, and it's probably not a coincidence that a lot of handpan enthusiasts and handpan players are looking at the music therapy and sort of the therapeutic aspects of the instruments. Playing the handpan in hospital settings, in hospice care, um, or even with, it's interesting. My wife and I were a host family for asylum seekers. It's a really long story, which we don't have the time to get into, but every now and then we will host folks coming from Central or South America for a couple of days. And this past weekend, we had a father and his 16-year-old son stay with us for a couple of days. And they were from Guatemala, illiterate, so they could not read or write, let alone, having learned how to play a musical instrument. And I was looking for different things to do. Obviously, the main goal was for them to rest before the next leg of their journey. But I brought out handpans, and you know what? Even if you grew up in the jungle, you can play the handpan. That's amazing. And like it activated their artistic senses right away. And to me, I thought, wow, that is so powerful, and we need to do more of that. So I think you'll have
That's
plenty of opportunities to do that in Zambia.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. That I'm so happy to hear about that experience and excited to see what people in Zambia think about it as well.
Yeah. How can we follow you online throughout your adventure?
Yeah, so uh, I will probably post some things on Instagram I use quite a bit.
Okay.
My Instagram name at the moment is Louis J All Day, which is a terrible name. I made it a while ago. Uh, yeah, or you know, um, I was toying around with the idea of maybe starting a blog, also just to kind of help me journal and kind of process what's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and if so, I'll post stuff on Facebook and Instagram too.
Hmm.
Uh,
Well, I really look forward to keeping in touch and just hearing about what you're about to experience. It's all very inspiring. But yeah, thank you for the example that you're showing us.
Thank you, and thank you as well, Sylvan, too, for uh, having me on this podcast and for when I spoke with you at Pantasia, and I remember the first time I really talked to you,
Hmm.
you were walking downstairs with your new Halo, and I was like, "What was that?" And you're like, "Let's just call it the one." And then we had that awesome conversation too about like just having one pan and like being able to take this one instrument to Zambia and just see where it goes. Thank you for everything.
Oh, you're so welcome. I've so enjoyed our conversations, and I can't wait to keep in touch and maybe get an update, a few months down the road from you.
Yeah, I'll have some internet service. I'm probably gonna have to ride a bicycle a long way to get there. But if you have some free time, I'll just give you a call.
Wow, that's wild, man. Well, safe travels. Thanks again for your time. And yeah, man, all the best.
Thank you. You as well.
Thanks. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
There's something Lewis said that I want to circle back on. He talked about the humility that comes with not having a handpan. I just think it's interesting because I'm pretty sure all of us could relate to that at some point, especially in the early days. But then we got in. We were able to finally acquire and start playing this remarkable instrument. And being an early adopter is rewarding, right? It's exciting. And it's tempting to want to keep it that way. The following quote fits perfectly here. Quote, "We must fight against our self-preservation instincts, against locking things down and saying who can and can't play, against making rules which are impossible to follow and standards which are impossible to meet, so only the insiders get to stay as insiders. Because the ability to play brings diversity of population, ideas, and outcomes. Diversity leads to connection and forward motion. End quote. As a reminder, you can continue the conversation on the Handpan Podcast community, which is our Facebook group. If you want to support this podcast, you can also get really cool merch at thehandpanpodcast.com. Just click merch. There are t-shirts and hoodies and stickers and even shower curtains. Wild, right? I had my friend Jeff Kane design fun illustrations that you might like. My favorite is that of a green alien playing the handpan. It's totally wacky, and it's a great conversation starter. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and talk to you in the next one.